Good morning. This is my second take at this because my dog started barking. If she starts barking this time, we're just gonna have to deal with it. Anyway, this is a dream log. I haven't done one in a while. Like I said in my first take, because a lot of the um, dreams have just been really random stuff that doesn't make any sense, and pink elephants and whatnot. So, um, not anything that's gonna make any sense. I do these dream logs for my family so that they can look at them and know what I was thinking about, know what I was dreaming about for, whenever they choose to look at these. So for all you YouTube viewers that are seeing it and you're like, "Oh, what is this? I don't care about this." Skip it. I don't care. I do my channel and put it full of things that I want to fill and share with people. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. That being said, a little bit of background history. My mother had me when she was 17 years old, a week after her 17th birthday, I think. Yeah, 2 weeks after her 17th birthday, 13 days after her 17th birthday. So she was pregnant with me when she was 16. So when I was born, I ended up spending a lot of time with my grandparents. Um, and I love my grandparents. My grandmother taught me all kinds of things. My grandfather taught me hunting, fishing, taught me all kinds of things. Um, so I loved my grandparents. Um, as I got older, I began to realize that my grandmother was not happy in her situation. Um, we start to see those adult themed ideas. And I started to realize that my grandfather was not a nice person at all. Even though he treated me very well while I was younger and while I was a kid, um, he did not treat anybody else very well at all. He was very mean and mean spirited. Um, that didn't manifest with me until I was 23, 24. I'm trying to think. I got married whenever I was 26. No, I got married when I was 25. Yeah, so it was probably about a year or two. So I had to have been about 23. Anyway, my grandmother had passed away. And, my aunts and my mother had to deal with this monster of a man their entire life. And he treated them horribly. Um, and I didn't ever know that. That's not the guy that I knew. Because I never saw it. But anyway, uh, we were at the hospital. My grandmother passed away, and then my aunts all kind of congregated together, and they were more attached to their mother than they were their father. So he kind of ended up ostracized out on his own. Um, and he was kind of a jerk through the whole thing, to be honest. I think it was more of a defense mechanism for him because he didn't know any other way to be. But he was just a jerk about everything. So there was a whole situation where he didn't want anything to do with them, they didn't have anything to do anything with him, and I was stuck in the middle trying to be a good nephew, a good son, and a good grandson. Um, and so he had begged us to come out and live with him and things like that, and eventually we did. Under great protest from me, I said I did not want to do it. I didn't think it was going to work. I had seen him get upset before over certain things that I just knew were going to be an issue. But he was sad. He was alone. He didn't know how to take care of himself. This is a classic relationship, if you want to think about it, from the Depression, where the woman stayed at home. She took care of everything, and the man went to work, and then he took care of all that. He did all the work, um, outside of the house, and the woman did all the work inside of the house. That includes bills, laundry, cooking, all that stuff. So when my grandmother passed away, he really didn't know how to take care of himself. He didn't know how to. He knew how to cook some things, but he didn't know how to cook. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but he didn't know how to turn on a washing machine. He didn't know what he was supposed to do. And this was a guy who was 80, 70. No, he was 70. Yeah, he had to have been 70. And he didn't know how to turn on a washing machine. That just can kind of blow your mind in today's ideas of things. But back then, you know, my grandmother didn't know how to drive a forklift or a bulldozer, but he could do that. So that was kind of how that got separated out. But anyway, moving on. We came in and we helped him, and we helped him get up on his feet and figure out how to do things on his own, and take him to go shopping and the best way to do it. And just a little just bachelor life lessons, at 70, because we did it. We were of a totally different generation, so we did it. We knew how to do all those things. Our parents had taught us how to be self-sufficient like that. It was just a different world. So anyway, we did all that. He got pretty comfortable with us being there, and he didn't like it when we weren't there. It would make him angry. So then I ended up having to travel for work, and I was down in Memphis, Tennessee, and I got a phone call from my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and she said, "Your grandpa's lost his mind. I'm locked in the bathroom, and he's pounding on the door and yelling at me and doing all this stuff." And I had heard horror stories about things like this happening before, and I just told him, I said, "You're a 20-year-old girl, and you have confidence in yourself. This is a 70-year-old man. You need to open the door, and you need to move him out of the way, and you need to leave the house, and don't go back until I get home." So that started where everything kind of spiraled out of control. He kind of lost it at that point, and our relationship just imploded on itself from that situation. That being said, let's get to the dream. I didn't speak to my grandfather basically from that point on, and he lived for another 10 years. He ended up with cancer. His daughters didn't want to have anything to do with him. My mother ended up going to take care of him in the end. And there's a lot of more personal situations in that that, are not my stories to tell. So I'm not going to go into why they didn't do what they did. But I can tell you now why I didn't do what I did. I thought about going out to help him, but it was going to be a very uncomfortable situation for him because I'm a pretty big guy, and I wasn't going to put up with anything anymore. And he was going to do what I said when I said, or I was going to leave. So my mother said, "Nah, I'll go. I'll do it. It'll probably be better because I'm his daughter and da da da." So she took care of him. At the end, until he passed away. He passed away from complications of cancer, but he was well on his way out the door. He had started to get a little bit of dementia, and he was 80-something. He'd worked in the mines. He had probably had black lung, and he just wasn't a healthy person. People who grew up in the Depression just were not healthy people. So he passed away, and I didn't go to his funeral. The man, and my mother asked me, she said, "I think you're going to regret this." And I told her, I said, "No." I said, "My grandfather died 10 years ago." And I meant that. My grandfather had died long, I'm probably going to get upset in this situation, but long, long ago. Um, anyway, uh, so the the dream that I had last night was about him, which is really weird because I don't think about him. I just don't. He's not on my mind. I don't have regrets. I don't want people to think that I have regrets. And when I get upset, it is because uh, he had died for me long, long ago. Um, so uh, the dream I had was really weird. He had made a very nice home for him and his wife. They had made it together. He built the house himself, um, and my grandmother had obviously decorated and furnished it and done all those things. And he had this nice ranch style house. He had a workshop that was just off of the house in the back that was probably about 1,000 square feet, probably about the size of my house now. Where he had his wood shop and he made furniture and he did all kinds of things there. And behind that, he had a shed um, that was probably about 300 square feet, and it stored his riding lawnmower, and he had a wood kiln in there. And for people who don't know what a wood kiln is, wood kiln just like you put wood in to dry. And then behind that, he had a tin barn. And this tin barn was there. And it was probably 20 by 30 tin barn. It was well, no, I guess it was probably about 30 by 40. It was pretty good size. And just junk sat in there. Just stuff. It wasn't messy, but it's not like it was piled full, but just things that just didn't go anywhere else. It just went into the tin barn. So that gives you a little description of how I remember this property. He had a pond there. He had a huge field where he grew Christmas trees. Um, you know, this tells you, frames this out for you a little bit, because this is what I'm seeing in my dream is this home. And for some reason, there's a ton of people there. Half of them I don't recognize. We're in the dream now, just so you know. So 13 minutes and 20 seconds, we're in the dream, and I'm describing it to you. We're at my grandmother and grandfather's home, the home that my mother and aunts grew up in. And so there's a bunch of people there, and half of them I do not recognize, but my grandfather's there. Um, and me and some other people are soaking this rope in what I assume is alcohol. I don't know why. And it's not like a hemp rope. It almost looks like like a climber's rope. We're soaking it in alcohol for some reason. I don't know why. And then we run it from like across the field, and for some reason where the pond and the tree field was a cornfield, but the cornfield should have been on the other side, but in your dreams things sometimes end up backwards. Anyway, so we soak this rope, and then we lay it out in a straight line through this cornfield, across down through a culvert, right, that goes under the road, and then over into this property that was called Prater's property, and it was a hunting and fishing cabin that was across the road, that my grandfather used to take care of for years and years and years and years and years for the family, and the family that owned it rarely ever used it. But we ended up, so we ran this rope down and crossed over to Prater's property, and there was we put it down in what looks like what would be like a water meter, where they have the big iron cap on it, and you take the iron cap off, and it's just like a little well, and it's got the meter down in the bottom. We ran it down into what that was, and I guess we had put some sort of explosives or something down in this water meter, and I don't know why that's going on in my dream, but it was. So, so it's like this is like a whole big event that everybody's waiting on is this thing, and I don't know why. But I go in, and my grandfather is sad, and he's talking about dying alone, and I don't see my grandmother there, so maybe she had passed away at that point. I don't know. Um, but he was talking about dying alone, and he was singing a song, and I can't remember the words now. This is why I do these dream logs, because I could remember the words vividly 20 minutes ago, but I can't remember the words now. But he was singing this very melodious, you know, song about dying alone and all these things. And then he kind of, everybody was having a good time, and they kept trying to cheer him up and things like that. And he just, didn't want anything to do with it. And then, you know, my aunts were kind of indifferent about it while they were there. They were like, well, you were a giant jerk your entire life, so yeah, that's what's going to happen. They didn't say that, but that was, the mindset. And they were over to the side. But all the friends and other people were trying to cheer him up, and he ended up disappearing and going into his bedroom. So I went looking for him at some point in this dream, and I go back and I find him, and he's in his bedroom, and he's sitting in there with a little bit of food in some sort of a pot or a bowl or whatever, and he's kind of just like half asleep, half, just out of it. And he's singing this song, and it basically is implying that he's going to kill himself. And you need an important detail that I'm going to add here is my grandfather's brother killed himself. Some say it was an accident in cleaning a gun. Some say that he actually killed himself. But anyway, it was a shotgun at close range, and my grandfather that I'm talking about in this dream found his brother dead and had been shot with this shotgun. So it really bothered him, had messed him up, from what I understand. So that brother, his name was Clifton, and I just told my grandfather in my dream, I said, don't do what Clifton did. Don't do that to everybody else. If you won't do it for yourself, don't do it to everybody else. And then the dream cut it. Dreams do jump cuts a lot for me. So then we jump cut, and then we're out of the bedroom, and he's still kind of melancholy, but he's back at the kitchen table, and he's at least joking and eating and things like that. And then somebody says it's time. So I go outside, and we jump cut again, and he's there with me, and it's us and a bunch of guys, and we light this rope, and it's just an alcohol soaked rope. It doesn't go, it's not like a fuse. You're not like in black powder, so it doesn't like go and take off. It just kind of burns slowly and, at a steady pace as it goes along. We're like, well, this is going to take a while. So then we just kind of forget about it. And we end up jump cutting back inside, doing some more things. And then I go, that should have happened by now. And he's like, what? And I'm like, that should have happened by now. So then it's him and I, and we go down and we walk the line of this rope, down to the ditch and through the ditch, through the culvert that goes under the road, and we see where it's smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke and smoke, and we're following it till the smoke stops, so we'd be to the head of the fire. And we get to the point where we're really close to this thing, and he says, it's just about time. He's like, we got to go back. So we turn and we get back up on the road and we start to walk away, and then boom, this explosion happens, and it's like something out of a cartoon, where it shows the ground where it humps up and goes along like a mole digging under the ground. This huge explosion just moving along. And he's like, well, that was just the little one. That was just to clear the lines. He's like, the next one will be bigger. And then so we keep walking, and we get up towards up halfway up his driveway back towards his house, and then this huge explosion happens, and it's almost like an earthquake. It just shakes the whole ground. And then I woke up. And I mean, that's the thing about these dreams and these dream logs is they're so random and they don't mean anything. But it's just really weird that I don't think about my grandfather very often. And I haven't thought about him today or lately or anything. He hasn't even come up in conversation. But for some reason, this morning, your brain just decides to cycle through and pull that information forward, and then you have some weird dream about it. And we've never done anything like that. The only closest thing I can think about is us burning leaves. We used to burn leaves in those ditches, and we used to burn that culvert out. Sometimes. So that's the only thing that I can think of that could have been connected to that situation, is just burning leaves, because it was in the woods and there was always debris in there, so we were always burning something to get rid of it. But that's the only thing I can think of. But just totally random. But I enjoy making these videos so that I can go back and look at what I've dreamt, because I won't remember this. Like all my previous dream logs, no idea what they're about. But at some point I'll go back and I'll watch them, and I'll be like, that's really weird. So this has been a long one. I try to keep them about 10 minutes long. This is about 23 minutes long, but this had just a lot of background I needed to line up for you, and so that you'd understand it. But thanks for sticking with me if you made it all the way through this video. And that's it. That's my dream log for today. Probably, who knows, maybe I'll start having dreams more often, and we'll get back on it. So till next time that I get to put one of these in here. If you're my family or friends, love you all. And for all the rest of you, wish you well. God bless you. And we'll talk to you again soon.